The prison moon was always cold. The kind of cold that didn't just freeze your skin, it reached deep into your bones and stayed there. Zyra, the alien girl with violet skin and silver eyes, had forgotten what warmth felt like. She had spent the last 6 years on this dead rock, sleeping on a metal floor, wrapped in a torn blanket that smelled like rust and fear. Every night, she curled into a corner of her cell. Not because it was comfortable, but because it was the only place where she could see both doors, the one guards used, and the one they dragged people through, never to return. Zyra used to fight. Her body still had the scars burns on her back, a deep slash over her ribs, a broken finger that never healed straight. But after a while, the fight left her. When you scream and no one listens, you stop screaming. When you cry and no one cares, your tears dry up. She wasn't the only prisoner here. Aliens of all shapes and colors shared this frozen hell. Some screamed in the night. Some whispered to invisible ghosts. Some were too broken to move. Zyra was one of the quiet ones, silent. Watching, waiting for a moment that never came. But something changed that night. A deep rumble shook the walls. Not thunder, not a mining drill. A ship. She crawled to the bars and looked through the frost-covered window. A sleek human ship landed on the pad. Humans didn't come here. Not unless they were buying or hunting. Zyra's chest tightened. Was it her turn to be sold? Boots echoed down the hallway, fast, confident steps. The cell door next to hers opened. Screams followed, metal chains, electric shocks. A guard cursed. Someone begged. Then silence. Zyra stepped back into the shadows. Heart pounding. Her body remembered the pain even before it came, but it didn't. Instead, the footsteps returned. Slower this time. Calm. Her door clicked. Unlocked. The door opened. Light flooded her cell. And for the first time in years, she saw a human face that didn't look cruel. He was tall, rough around the edges with a scar down his jaw and tired. Blue eyes. His voice was steady, low. Name? He asked. She didn't answer. He stepped inside. No chains, no weapons. I'm not here to hurt you, he said. Zyra still didn't move. My name is Rex. I'm a captain. I bought you. Her stomach twisted. Bought, of course. Nothing had changed, but then he said something strange. You're free now. I'm taking you with me. No cages, no collars. She laughed once, cold and bitter. Was this a game? He took off his jacket and handed it to her. She didn't move, so he placed it gently on the ground and stepped back. I don't care what you are, alien, soldier, weapon, whatever they called you. You look cold, that's all I see. Zyra stared at the jacket like it was a trap. But it smelled clean, warm. She touched it, then pulled it close. The fabric was soft, heavy. It covered her like a shield. Why? She whispered. Rex tilted his head. Because no one deserves to freeze like this. He walked out of the cell and waited. She could stay. Or follow. For a long moment, Zyra stood there, torn between fear and curiosity. Then her feet moved, not because she trusted him, but because she was tired of being cold. Outside, the ship waited with its ramp open. Warm air brushed against her face for the first time in years. Her eyes watered. She wasn't crying, just shocked. The ship's inside was simple, clean, no chains, no weapons aimed at her. He showed her a room, small but warm, a bed, real sheets, a pillow, a blanket. Sleep, he said. Rest, she didn't know how to reply. So she sat on the edge of the bed, stiff, scared. He walked to the door, but before leaving he turned back. I don't expect anything. You owe me nothing. Then he left. The door stayed open. Zyra sat in silence. Then slowly, she slid under the blanket. Her fingers gripped the edge. It was warm. Really warm. Her heart didn't trust it yet. Her body flinched at every sound. But for the first time in years, she didn't fall asleep on metal. She didn't fall asleep in fear. She closed her eyes. And for the first time, dreamed of something other than escape. Zyra didn't sleep. Not really, her eyes closed, but her mind stayed alert. Every sound, every hum of the ship's engine, every faint footstep outside the door made her body tense. The bed was too soft. The blanket was too warm. It didn't feel right. It felt like a lie. She sat up before the first light came through. The tiny window. Still on the ship. Still not chained. Still not touched. Her feet touched the floor slowly. She expected alarms, orders, maybe a guard ready to bark commands. But the hallway outside was quiet. The lights glowed gently, like the ones in old stories. Peaceful. Too peaceful. She stepped out barefoot, and then she smelled something strange. Food. Real. Food. Warm. She followed the scent, her body moving before her mind could protest. It led her to a small room, metal walls and a single table. The human sat at the stove, humming something under his breath. His jacket was gone. His hands moved carefully over the pan. He turned before she could hide. "Morning," he said, like. It was a normal thing. Zyra didn't answer. He pointed to the table. "Sit. You don't have to eat if you don't want." "But it's there." She didn't move. So he kept cooking. The smell was painful. Her stomach growled before she could stop it. He didn't laugh or point it out. Just placed a plate on the table. Eggs, toast, some kind of meat. Zyra stared at it. "Poison?" She asked quietly. "No," he said. "Boring maybe. But not poison." He walked away. Not out of the room, but to the other side. Far from her. He poured himself a cup of something black and hot, then leaned against the wall and sipped. Zyra stood like a trapped animal, but then her feet moved. Again. She sat. Bit the toast. Her eyes watered again. It wasn't just food. It was warm. It was real. And for some reason, that broke something inside her. After eating, she expected questions. "Where are you from? What did they do to you? What can you do for me?" But the human asked none of those. Instead, he said, "You need clothes." "I left some on the bed." She blinked. He wasn't watching her like the others used to, like she was meat. He was treating her like someone, not property. Not a thing. "I don't understand you," she said at last. He smiled. "That's okay, most people don't. No one gives something for free." Rex looked at her, and something in his eyes changed. "You think this is free?" he said quietly. "I bought you because I couldn't stand what they were doing. I broke more laws than I can count to get you off that moon. I risked my crew, my license, and my neck." Zyra stared. "But," he added, "you don't owe me anything. I didn't do it so you'd bow to me. I did it because I couldn't not." Zyra didn't speak. She didn't know how to. She just stood there. Alive. Warm. And confused. That night, she returned to the bed. The clothes he gave her were simple. Clean. Human. She wore them like armor. Then curled up in the blanket again. The lights dimmed automatically. The ship hummed like a soft lullaby. But this time, the fear didn't come. The walls didn't feel like a cell. The bed didn't feel like a trap. It felt safe. She didn't know the human story. She didn't know if she could trust him, but for now, for this one night, Zyra didn't feel cold. And for the first time in her life, she wondered if maybe, just maybe, this was what peace felt like. Zyra woke up gasping. The blanket was tangled around her legs. Her hands were clenched into fists. Her breath came fast, like she had just escaped something horrible. But the room was quiet. No chains. No shouting. No pain. Just the hum of the ship. She sat up slowly, confused. She didn't remember the dream, only that it wasn't a nightmare. And that was even more terrifying. For 6 years, every night had been full of darkness, torture, screams, memories of people she couldn't save, of the things they made her do. But now, she had dreamed of sunlight. Of a lake, of a hand reaching out, not to take, but to hold. She touched her face. It was wet. Tears. Real tears, but not from fear. The door was half open. Zyra walked out quietly, still barefoot. The metal floor didn't feel cold anymore. The hallway stretched ahead, quiet and calm. She heard soft voices, distant, probably the crew. She didn't know them, didn't trust them, but no one had come near her room. No one had tried to peek. No one had touched her. She followed the sound of the kitchen. Rex stood at the counter, sipping from a mug, reading something on a screen. He looked up, smiled. "Sleep okay?" he asked. Zyra stared. "I had a dream," she said. He nodded like that was normal. It wasn't bad, she added quietly. That made him pause. He looked at her with softer eyes. "That's a good start." She didn't sit. Not yet. Her body was still deciding if this was real. "I don't understand you," she said. "You said that yesterday," he replied. "And I still mean it," he shrugged. "Maybe you don't need to understand me. Just rest, heal. That's enough. Later." He gave her a tour of the ship. No guards, no locked doors. He showed her the medbay, the common area, the storage. A few other crew members passed by, a tall woman with cybernetic arms, a short guy with glowing implants, but none of them stared. No one asked questions. No one looked at her like she was a thing. When they reached the bridge, she hesitated. "You fly this?" she asked. "I fly you wherever you want," he said with a smile. She shook her head. "You sound like a storybook." "I get that a lot." That night she ate with them, quietly, cautiously. The food was strange but warm. Someone told a joke. She didn't laugh, but she didn't frown either. Her mind kept drifting back to the dream. What did it mean? Why now? Why after all these years? And why was she starting to hope again? Back in her room, Zyra stared at the ceiling. The bed wasn't just warm anymore. It was hers. She stretched under the blanket, closed her eyes, and this time, when she slept, she dreamed of something even more dangerous than fear. She dreamed of freedom. Zyra sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. She hadn't moved for almost an hour. The blanket still held her warmth from the night before, but something inside her had gone cold again, because last night, she laughed. Just once, just a small sound. When the human with metal arms, Sarah told a clumsy joke over dinner. Zyra laughed, and she hated herself for it. She pressed her hand to her chest, trying to calm the storm building inside. She didn't belong here, on this ship, in this soft room. Wrapped in warmth she didn't earn. People like her weren't supposed to laugh. They were supposed to fight, obey, bleed, not dream, not smile, not heal. The knock was gentle. Just one knock. No shouting, no orders. Then silence. Zyra didn't answer, but after a few moments, she heard the soft sound of something placed outside her door. When she opened it later, she found a mug. Steaming. Cocoa, they called it. Sweet, warm, and strange. And beside it, a small note. It's okay to rest. Rex. That night, she curled into the bed, but the ghosts came anyway, not in dreams. This time. They came as memories. Chains dragging on steel floors, screams echoing from nearby cells, cold hands pulling her into dark rooms. The smell of blood, the taste of fear. She squeezed the blanket until her knuckles hurt. Why couldn't she just sleep? Why couldn't her mind accept that she was safe? The door creaked. Her body tensed, but it was just Rex. He didn't step in. He stayed in the doorway, holding a small lamp that barely lit his face. "I was passing by," he said quietly, "and heard you breathing hard. Thought maybe you needed to talk." She didn't answer. "I can go," he added. Zyra swallowed. "No," she said, barely a whisper. "Stay, but don't come in." He nodded. And then, without a word, he sat down just outside her room, back against the wall, one leg stretched out, the lamp beside him. "I'll be here," He said. Minutes passed. Maybe hours, she couldn't tell. But something about the sound of his quiet breathing calmed her. No pressure. No demands. Just presence. She finally drifted off, and for once, the ghosts stayed away. In the morning, she woke to find him still there, head tilted against the wall, eyes closed, guarding the door. Like she was someone worth protecting. Zira stared at him for a long time. Then, slowly she closed the door again and sat on the bed. This time, she didn't feel like an intruder in her own skin. This time, she didn't feel like a prisoner pretending to be free. She felt something else. Something scarier. Something she hadn't felt since she was a child. Safe. Zira wasn't used to silence that didn't feel dangerous. The kind of silence that wrapped around you like a blanket instead of coiling like a noose. On this ship, there were no alarms. No screams, no footsteps in the dark, only quiet hums. Distant chatter. The low rhythm of a home she didn't know how to belong to. She sat at the edge of her bed, staring at her hands. They looked different now. No fresh bruises. No rope marks, just old scars. Fading. Later that evening, Zira wandered into the common room. The crew was scattered, Zira polishing her arm. Ven, half asleep with his boots still on. Rex was there too. He didn't say anything when she entered. Just looked up, nodded once, and slid a cup of tea her way. Not cocoa, this time. Stronger. Bitter. Warm. She took it without a word. Then did something she hadn't done before. She sat beside him, not across. Not far away. Beside. Close enough to feel his body heat. She watched him out of the corner of her eye. He wasn't looking at her like the guards used to. Not like she was a thing, or a trophy, or something broken. He was just Daryl, present. Quiet. His fingers rested on the edge of the table. Rough knuckles. Small cuts. A man's hands. Hands that hadn't touched her once. Not even when he carried her out of the cell. Not when she collapsed on his ship. Not when she cried in her sleep. He had stayed back. Always giving her space. And that made her more confused than anything else. Why haven't you touched me? She asked suddenly. The words slipped out. Rex looked over, calm. You don't want me to. She blinked. You bought me. He shook his head. No, I freed you. Her voice dropped. Same thing. No, he said firmly. Not to me. Zira looked away. The silence returned, but this time, it wasn't uncomfortable. Just fragile. That night, she lay in bed again. Blanket pulled up to her chin. The lights were dimmed. The ship's hum steady. She tried to sleep, but her mind wouldn't. Quiet. The question echoed again. Why hasn't he touched me? Because deep down, she realized something dangerous. She wanted to be held. Not used, not claimed. Just held. Like a person. Like someone worth comforting. The floor creaked outside. Zira opened the door quietly. Rex was asleep on the floor again. Same position. Same lamp. Same quiet promise. I'm here. But this time, she didn't shut the door. She stepped out, kneeling beside him. She gently shook his shoulder. He woke, startled but relaxed when he saw her. Something wrong? He asked. No, she whispered. Then carefully, she lifted his hand, placed it on hers. Just once. One soft touch. His hand was warm, steady, and still. He didn't pull her in. Didn't move closer. Just stayed, letting her guide everything. She leaned her head on his shoulder. Not because she had to. Because she chose to. That night, for the first time in her life, Zira didn't sleep alone, and it was the gentlest night she'd ever known. Zira stood by the viewport, watching stars drift by like silent ghosts. It had been 3 days since she touched Rex's hand. She hadn't spoken much since. He didn't press her. He never did, but something inside her had started to shift. Not gently, not peacefully, like a fault line cracking beneath the surface. She tried to ignore it. She helped Zira in the engine room, carried supplies with Ven, sat beside Rex during meals. Her body felt better, stronger, but her mind was a storm. Each time she laughed or even smiled, something cold whispered in her head, "You don't deserve this." Each time she reached for a cup of tea or leaned against a warm wall, they're watching, waiting, it's all fake. And worst of all, the girl in the cell is still who you are. She didn't want to believe it, but the voices in her head were louder than the crew's kindness. Then came the distress. Signal. A mining station near the rim had been attacked. Pirates. Survivors were few. Rex decided to help. Zyra said nothing, but her hands clenched the moment he gave the order. Too familiar. Too fast. Too dangerous. They landed at night. Ash in the air. Fires still burning. Broken metal and spilled blood. Zyra stepped out of the ship and froze. The smell hit her first burned flesh. Gun oil, coolant. Then the silence. Too much like the places she had been held. Too much like the day her world ended. Her breathing quickened. She touched the side of the ship to steady herself. And then she heard it. A scream. A child's. Far off, but clear. Before she could think, she ran through smoke. Through broken corridors, her heart pounded like it used to. Back when she wasn't just a victim, but a weapon. She found the girl in a collapsed hallway. Trapped under debris, bleeding. A pirate raised a blade to finish the job. Zyra didn't hesitate. She moved like instinct, like fire. One strike. Then another. Not with weapons. With her body. Sharp, fast, brutal. She didn't see the blood. Not until it splashed on her face. And by then, it was over. The pirate lay broken. The girl sobbed beneath the rubble. Zyra stared at her hands, covered in red. Shaking. Old instincts roared to life inside her. She wanted to scream. But instead, she lifted the metal off the child, carried her back, and when Rex saw her blood-stained, eyes wild, he didn't speak. Just nodded once. As if he knew. As if he understood. Hours later, the crew was safe. The girl was stable. The ship had lifted off again. But Zyra couldn't rest. She sat alone in the cargo bay, staring at the wall. The storm inside her raged louder than ever. Rex found her there, didn't say anything. He just sat beside her again, like he always did. "You saw it, didn't you?" she said quietly. He didn't lie. "Yes. I was fast, precise, cold. You saved her. I killed, and I liked it." That part came out in a whisper, full of shame. Rex turned to her, calm. "You did what you had to." Zyra shook her head. "I'm not soft like you think I am. I'm not innocent." Rex's voice didn't rise. "I never thought you were innocent." She looked at him, stunned. "But that doesn't mean you're unworthy of peace." Silence filled the room. Zyra lowered her head. "I'm scared of what I become when I stop pretending to be human." Rex placed a hand gently over hers. "No one asked you to pretend. You're not human. You're you. That's enough." And just like that, the storm inside her paused. Not gone, not silenced, but seen. And for now, that was enough. Zyra didn't know when the ship started to feel like home. There wasn't a single moment. It was the little things. The way the lights dimmed gently when she walked into her room. The smell of real food instead of recycled air. The silence that didn't carry fear. Only peace. And Rex. Always Rex. Not pushing. Not asking. Just being there. The girl she had saved, Lana, had recovered. She liked to draw on walls with chalk. Smiled at Zyra like she wasn't afraid of her violet skin or her sharp stare. Sometimes, Zyra watched her and felt something strange in her chest. A softness. A crack in the armor that used to protect her from feeling anything at all. She passed the medbay one night and saw Rex asleep in a chair. He'd been checking on Lana every few hours. His head had fallen back, arms crossed, mouth slightly open. Zyra stood there quietly, watching him. This man, this human, had done the one thing no one else dared. He made her feel human, without ever asking her to stop being what she was. She walked in slowly, pulled a blanket from the shelf and draped it over him. For once, she was the one protecting him. Back in her room, she sat on the bed. Her bed. Not a cell, not a cage, not a reward or a weapon, just a bed. And it was hers, that night. She didn't curl up in the corner. She didn't flinch when the lights went out. She lay down in the center, under the blanket Rex had given her weeks ago. The one that still smelled faintly like him, like leather, metal, and quiet strength. She closed her eyes, and dreamed, not of blood, not of cages, but of stars, and warmth, and voices that spoke without cruelty. A soft knock came in the morning. She opened the door before he could finish knocking. Rex blinked, a little surprised. "I was just checking in." Zyra didn't speak. She stepped aside, let him in. He walked slowly, uncertain. She stood in front of him, hands at her sides. "I used to think beds were for the weak," she said quietly. Back on the prison moon, sleeping meant surrender. Closing your eyes meant death. Rex listened. "I don't feel that here. Not with you." Still, he said nothing. She stepped closer. "I don't want to be owned," she whispered. "But I want to belong." Rex reached out, slow, respectful, and took her hand. Not forcefully, not possessively, just a simple, human touch. "You already do," he said. She pulled him gently toward the bed. Not for lust, not for payment, just to share it, to share silence, to share peace. They lay side by side, facing the ceiling. No need for words, no need for explanations. The war inside her was quiet. Now, not gone, but quiet, because she knew she wasn't alone anymore. She wasn't what they made her. She wasn't the cold, empty thing they tried to shape. She was Zyra, alive, safe, home.